Today we have a panel up here. We are going to hear from two mother and son duos, Dawn and Kellen Kaasa, and Deb and David Niedfeldt. And both of these families experienced inclusion right when it was a new concept. They were right on the cusp of it. And in large part because of these parents' faith in the power of yet. And I got to know both these families through the PDFs I get to work with. They're the professional development facilitators that work at the Minnesota Centers of Excellence. And both these ladies, we have Sara Schoepf from Regions 5 and 7, and then we have Jill Harves from Region 10, yep. And both of these women, although they are now professional development facilitators, they began their professional careers in special education in the classroom. And so through various things in which they were involved and activities, they came to know both these families. And so they introduced me to them, and we were just so delighted when both these young men and their moms decided to say yes and help share their story and reflect on how early intervention played into the power of yet. And so they're just going to share a little bit about their successes. I just want to note, I'm so impressed with both these young guys. David just graduated from the Augsburg University, right? Isn't that so cool? And Kellen is a Special Olympiad athlete, and he has been in a number of national golf tournaments and he's titled and taken the gold, and he's just been invited back to another one to defend his title nationally, which is just pretty cool, right? And since a story is far more powerful when it's told firsthand, I'm going to leave the stage now and turn it over to our panel. So thanks.
Okay, this morning it's my pleasure to introduce to you Kellan Kaasa. Raise your hand, Kellen. And his mother, Dawn. As the morning goes on, you will learn a lot more about Kellen and all of his achievements, and also hear from his mom about the tireless advocacy she did for Kellen as he was growing up. And as you can see, and you will hear, Kellen proved that she was right.
Good morning. Is this on? Okay, it just sounds different. I have the pleasure of introducing Deb Niedfeldt and her son David. They are here from Rochester, Minnesota, and I have known them for over 20 years. We go back a long way. Deb and I used to work together, providing statewide training regarding family support and how to build partnerships between parents and professionals. And I can honestly say that it was the best job I ever had. I agree. It was phenomenal. But during that time, I had a chance to watch David grow up and become the remarkable man he is today. I think as a parent, we all have the opportunity, God willing, to watch our children become adults. And it is a transformation. And I just want to give ultimate credit to Deb and her husband, Steve, for being those people to instill in David this remarkable desire to become who he is. He is amazing, and there is no one on this planet that is more of a champion for his success than his mom. So I'm glad they could join us today.
So David, you've had both great academic success and personal success outside of school. What were the things you liked best about school?
Is this on? Yeah, it's on. I would say that, I would say school, I would say if you start with elementary, considering this is early childhood, there were, the teachers were very, very important. I would say that was vital, actually. Beyond that, we had a lunchtime fun group system, which I enjoyed then. It was a, I enjoyed that. I enjoyed it. That however, I have to be honest and say that my view of it became a little different as I learned about it and learned about what the objective was. It was.
Tell them the deal, okay?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So what
Go
happened
ahead.
was we had this
Go ahead.
lunchtime fun group, and they would get together and do projects together on Titanic or whatever, play games, but some paired interaction would happen. The goal of it was social skills for David, but he never knew that.
Until down the road.
When finally we were talking about it later, and he said, I said, why do you think you were in it all the time? And he said, I thought I was just lucky.
Right.
And he was, actually. So
Yeah.
he had a good time in it, really liked it. Then after he found out there was a real goal to it, he
It was like,
isn't as fond of it.
right, yeah.
But it was really useful. So I'll let David go on now.
Yeah, and to be truthful, part of that probably was the fact that on the other hand, and I give credit to Mom here and the people around me, that part of the objective also was to make me feel as normal as I could, and so part of that was probably the normalcy of where I was by then, was I was normal enough to say, ooh, this is, this was a little, so that was so in a weird way, that's probably credit to them that I was able to get to the point where I felt that way, probably in some sense. And then beyond that, middle school, my pivotal year was 8th grade. I developed my interest in history and political science then. I had a teacher who helped with that quite a bit. And then by the middle of high school-ish, middle to last year of high school was really when I started feeling accepted by people. I had a group of friends by then, and I was kind of able to enjoy high school as it's supposed to be enjoyed. So that was my K through 12 years, essentially from what I can remember. What I can remember of those, and then obviously just throughout that time, supports were a big deal. The teachers, the paras help, all those kind of things were vitally important to my success. And then RCTC in Augsburg, my college years, I would say I realized I got to appreciate the fact that I was there based on my merits, which was important to me for my self-esteem. It was important, and then the supports provided was important. Obviously, Augsburg did a great job with it. RCTC did well too. That was, I would say those are the major reasons I'm sitting here in front of you and able to do this. Was all those different supports.
We have to give a lot of kudos to Augsburg. He moved out of home and onto the campus, and their supports and the technology supports are phenomenal. It was a great transition for out of home onto his own, and he had connections. He had people to go to up there. Once Mom and this really close friend got over praying every day that it would go well, it was really good.
Okay, Kellen, if you could tell us a little bit about what were the things you liked best about school?
Making friends. Won a gold medal. I went to prom with the homecoming queen.
That was probably the highlight for Kellen.
Kellen started out, and the first preschool that we went to was a segregated one, and we went there for a couple weeks, and I just told my husband, this isn't what we are looking for Kellen. There's nobody for him to learn from. I think children learn almost better from each other than they do from us. We're just kind of observers. And we went to the preschool in our town and asked at the parent meeting if they would be willing to let Kellen be there, and all the parents said absolutely, and the teacher welcomed him with open arms, and that was really where it started, because those were his friends then, and they were the ones that he was going to Sunday school with, and he was in preschool with them, and then so it was his friendships are what were really the biggest and most important thing for Kellen through the years, I think, and just getting to be with the other kids. And yes, he really did get to go to prom with the homecoming queen, and he was pretty proud of that.
David, when you look at all the things that you have done, what do you feel most proud of?
I would say the two that come to mind are achieving my history and political science degree. I would say that's the biggest one. I would say next to that is relationship development beyond outside of my disability. I would say developing relationships with normal people, as it were. I would say in the sense that that's part of acceptance and stuff too. Is people that are of the mainstream, as it's been called sometimes, developing those sort of relationships. So yeah, I would say those are my top two. I would say. So yeah.
Kellen, when you look back at all the things that you've done in your 33 years, what do you feel most proud of? I had to tell you how old he was.
Got a job at Hy-Vee, and I work very hard, and I love it.
Kellen did get his job. He applied all by himself. He interviewed by himself, and they came downstairs, and the manager asked my husband, "Can he start next week?" And yeah, I guess he can. He's been there. It'll be 13 years in September. He works Monday through Friday, and he bags and pushes carts, and he's probably the social butterfly of Hy-Vee. I always drop him off early because he has to make his rounds and greet each of the departments and the managers, ask them how their day's going. And the deli manager became one of Kellen's friends. He even jumped in the polar plunge with Kellen and helped him. And he passed away a couple years ago. But the one day my husband went in there and he said, "I just want to thank you guys for giving Kellen the opportunity to work here." And his boss, and the deli manager were standing there, and they said, "No, Tim, thank you for letting us hire Kellen and giving us the opportunity." Because he said, "There's not a day goes by that we don't see someone who gets a hug or a smile." And Doug said one day, he said, "Tim, I have to tell you, I can come in here and be pretty crabby and pretty grumpy sometimes." And he said, "All it takes is a wave from Kellen," he said. And he said, "You can't help but smile." So yeah, that is probably his proudest accomplishment.
David, what did your schools and teachers do that helped you?
I would say the main thing was providing the supports to help me do my coursework. I would say that was the biggest thing. Beyond that, having resource rooms and resource people to go to, actually to have time with, and help organize my days and help organize my work schedules and stuff like that. And they also provided I also provided oversight with assignments and stuff. So I'd actually go in there and actually I'd sit and do homework in there and stuff. And then also that resulted in sort of a sense that I wasn't alone in this kind of thing, where you had people there that could help you out with stuff. And yeah, I would say having those supports, having the personal attention and stuff helped. Yeah.
So David, how did your family, your mom, your dad, how did they help you along the way?
I would say that my mom, my mom actually wrote this down on here. Yeah. Okay, that's yeah. She actually wrote the thing down. So I'll say it. They cuddled me, hugged me, told me how nice I was. Holy mackerel.
He said it laughingly, and I wrote it.
I'm not surprised. Beyond this, they've been great advocates. With the education stuff, they've made sure stuff got done. They did what they had to do, as it were. They would do what they had to do. It was and I would say that was the primary piece. And then beyond that, they always built me up in ways. They helped my self-esteem. They've taught me respect, and they never bought into the you have a disability sort of thing, so you're not going to be this or that or the other thing. All right.
When we were going through the questions and I was jotting down some notes as he spoke, he kept saying, it's really what you didn't do, is you didn't let the disability be the guide. And I didn't understand at first when he said, well, it's really what you didn't do. And I thought, I thought we did everything we could.
Right. She looked at me like, what the heck did you just say? Sort of thing. But yeah, I would say the primary example of that would be the trips we took. The trips we took to we took trips to Missouri and Duluth and to the cities several times. Really influenced my history, really helped with that. And I would say beyond that we have some friends who are more than family who have really helped and supported me in a lot of things. So yeah, that's it.
The vacations and stuff we planned, he was hooked on the Titanic like in 3rd and 4th grade. And a kid with Asperger's is really hooked. It was like, that's all we did at the house was talk about. So then Mom had a Titanic club one summer. I thought, stupid, but but anyway, got kids to the house and some social things happening. But we planned trips. We went to presidential museums. We went to the Henry Ford Museum. There's just history all over. And he was so hooked on Titanic that we went to Duluth to show him other boats, and there was lots of mishaps and on Lake Superior and stuff. So it really did open doors, and that was kind of our goal, was to broaden the topics of interest for David.
That's it. Yeah.
Kellen, what did your schools and teachers do that helped you?
They helped me learn everything I know. Supported me. Encouraged me. That's it. New friends, too.
The teachers, through the years, we had wonderful teachers. The staff, we had some struggles in the beginning. School board bucked us on a few things, and we had to fight for some stuff, but Kellen never noticed the struggles that were going on behind the scenes. That was really nice through the school district. And I didn't always make friends, because but I wasn't there to make friends. I was there to support Kellen and make sure that he got the education he needed. But that was never reflected. And so, I don't know how much. We had to, when Kellen first started, we had to fight for an aide for him. It wasn't automatic back then. And then they bounced around with a few aides. The thing that really helped Kellen through the years was finally, I think it was 5th grade, I went in and I said, this has got to stop. You can't quit. You can't keep changing aides on him every year, because they said he's losing a month and a half of education time every year, because it takes that long for the new gal to know what buttons to push and how to encourage Kellen and how to back off and let him do what he could do himself. And at 5th grade then, we did get one aide, and she followed him through his junior year. And then that was amazing. And I know some districts, I don't know for what reason, still think that that's not a good idea, but for Kellen it was, and it cut out the wasted time. So I don't know what districts you're in or whatever, but some parents maybe wouldn't like that, but it was very, very helpful to have somebody who knew what he could do and how much to back off and let him do his own. That was probably our biggest thing. Did you like that? Yeah.
So Kellen, how did your mom and your dad and your family and friends support you throughout your education and in your life now?
Mom takes me to work every day. Dad takes me golfing after work. My brother is a good kid. He taught me how to play golf. He's my unified partner. My sister got me a date for prom.
Well, we do. We do take Kellen to work every day. I drop him off, and my husband picks him up, and I don't know, what else do we take you to, Kel? Concerts. Oh, you got to use your mic. Go ahead, tell him. He's a little shy with the microphone. Kellen has a love for country music, and I have lost count on how many concerts he's went to. He gets backstage passes at Trick Pony, Trick Pony was his group he followed. Now he has gotten to be friends with Little Big Town, and they've turned out quite well. But they're amazing when we see him. They remember him. They visit with him. They ask him how he's doing in his golf and stuff. But the friends Kellen made in school are still his friends today. He's been an usher in several weddings, a groomsman in one, and he's been invited. I think people don't realize that he really has genuine friends. But Kellen is a friend, and we've always told all of our kids, if you want to have a friend, you have to be a friend. And I don't think there's a better example of a friend.
Deb and Dawn, we know that your sons today here would not be where they are without your love and support, without your ongoing high expectations, both of yourselves as a parent and of your sons. And it really did take partnering with schools to help that to happen. I know that it hasn't always been easy, and at times you've had to respectfully really advocate for what you thought was important. Today, you have a full audience of people who are kind of at the sprint of the marathon in families' lives. And so these folks are all looking at the roles that they play at very young children and families. If you look back at your lives over the last 30, 26 years, what stands out particularly in those early years, and what kind of tips can you give the people in the audience for their role in families' lives?
I had to kind of work at this to think back to that time. Okay, sorry. Glad you're here, Sara. I had to work at this kind of to really go back through that time. My husband will periodically say, "Oh, that wasn't so bad." I said, "Get a grip." I mean, it was really hard. And they say, "Where were you?" So anyway, I'll give you a little background on David, and you'll know what we were going into as he first came into the early childhood system. David was born at 30 weeks, so he was 10 weeks early. He ended up with a feeding tube until he was almost 4 years old, and he was oxygen dependent. At 6 months, he weighed 6 pounds. Actually, we'd go into Mayo Clinic, and the nurses just about always would weigh the file and weigh David, and at 6 months, the file weighed more than David. We spent about 5 months of his first 14 in hospital. And I say we because I think out of that, there was 5 days that I wasn't there. At 9 months, he rolled over. At a year, he could sit up alone. At 1 year, he weighed 11 pounds. And he walked at about 25 months. And at 30 months, he started talking. And he never quit. It is amazing. You know, we couldn't get 3, maybe 5 words out of him, and then it was like the dam broke. I mean, I read something about Asperger's, and it would said one of the first paragraphs said, "They lecture volubly like the little professor." Well, that is my kid, I thought. So some things ring really true. So David was the first IEP in Fillmore County, which was interesting, especially when I looked back at it at the time. It was like, so they did the assessment, wrote the report, and, pardon? For an infant, yes, the first infant assessment. Yes, no, sorry, but for early childhood it was. And so they did the assessment, and they delivered the report, so we're sitting there, and they finish, and I kind of see everybody go, like, we did it. And I'm thinking, you did what? No. Is that all there is, was the question in my mind, is where are we going from here? And for them, you know, you could tell it was a new journey for them too, all the way through. And luckily, they were really nice people. And but I remember thinking when they finished the report, I thought, okay, what now? And so we went to visit. It was about 3 when we went to visit the Early Childhood Center in Rochester. And, you know, we were visiting with the teacher, and they talked about riding the bus. And I didn't say it out loud, but in my head I thought, over my dead body. And literally, that went through my head. And so we were walking around, and there was this Phi Ed instructor, and I gotta share his name, you guys know him, Curly Bolison from Rochester. I looked in the door of the Phi Ed room and was listening and watching, and I walked away and I turned and said, he is like a drill instructor. This is not gonna work. But came to be, he was somebody the kids loved. He was structured, he was not mean, but he was very direct, which, you know, tends to work better anyway. So I let him go on the bus, and he survived. I survived. That was a big one, it really was. The other thing I have to say that early childhood people gave us was their patience. I cannot tell you how important that is. There's this poem, and you all probably have heard it, Welcome to Holland. Well, I didn't land in Holland. I didn't know where I was. I mean, honestly, you are so messed up. You know, we had a lot of medical issues, and he was certainly delayed. And the medical issues never ended for us. And so it did take a lot of patience. There would be days he couldn't, you know, they couldn't come to work because of his health, you know, work with him or do anything with him. And so I encourage you to have the patience of Job. It is so important. And keep sharing the information. It's not that we're not listening. It might not be what's important in our head right now. I might, which I did, find that brochure later and say, who gave me this? You know, you may feel in your head, I know I've given her this. But, and yes, you probably did, but do it again, because I have no idea what you're talking about. One day, I think the value of early childhood people is one day an occupational therapist came to the house, and they worked with David all the time. And bad day for mom, and there was those that were really bad. And she never worked with David. I don't know what she wrote on the chart, and I don't care. She spent the time talking to me, listening to me. And it was the best and most right thing she could have done that day. It stands out in my mind what a kind decision she made that day to give me the attention I needed to go forward with David. Because as you guys know, you guys do things, but we need to too, as a partner with you. The exercises, whatever they are, is we need to be able to do them, and we need to keep functioning. And those kinds of things do help. So I don't care what you write on your chart. I didn't tell, you don't tell, we're good. The other thing is the demonstration of how much the staff really cared about David really gave me, and I didn't realize it till later, a sense of trust, which is so important. Not that there wasn't things we disagreed on or wanted done differently or whatever, but I figured out then that educators really do care about this boy, not just mom and dad, you know? And so developing that trust, you know, it was part of the challenge was every time you moved to new people, you had to rebuild it and redo it. It doesn't stay with you, although it gives you a sense of, okay, maybe this will be good too. You know, you go forward in a more positive way. And the thing that came to me over time and probably coalesced most in second and third grade was the partnering, how really, really important it was, not just to come together as a team and separate, but partner. Our interests and goals were similar for David. And we needed each other's buy-in, so we had to be able to come to common decisions and things. So we worked hard at partnering, at trust. And overall, it was the way to go. We reached a point in middle school and high school where we would have a meeting prior to the school year beginning just to meet and talk about being partners in this for David, you know, how we work, what their expectations are, just to get to know each other and talk about that partnership. And what does that really mean? It's not just a word. It isn't. It's them being frustrated and be able to say it, us being frustrated, if you disagree, being able to say it out loud, and knowing you're not going to jeopardize the relationship. So the trust is so important. So be open and honest with each other. It really does work. And have faith in each other. Have faith in us as parents, because we truly are doing the best. And we know you guys are. Not easy, but a couple things I wish we were, I wish we had gotten into the technology sooner. That, you know, David has a vision impairment also, and it would have been helpful. You know, you kind of don't know what you don't know till you have it and say, oh my gosh, that would have been good to have. And that's, that's what I wish is one of the things. If there's something important out there, just make sure we understand it, how important it is. Because like I said, you say it, but we don't necessarily buy into it right away or understand it or care, even some days. But I think of David, when he was a babe, was offered a waiver, and I didn't take it. We were both working parents, taking care of ourselves, we had insurance. What would we need a waiver for? Well, we did. We came to find out we did. And then it was harder to get one. Years later when we decided, yeah, a waiver would be helpful. So I wish we had gotten connected to state services earlier. Someone may have mentioned it, but again, I didn't grasp how valuable state services for the blind could be to us. So there comes a point where you knock us over the head, said, I know you don't understand the importance of this, but I'm telling you, go do it. You know, be as strict as possible, because I didn't understand the importance of those things. And the other thing that was a challenge was a couple times there were some arbitrary decisions made by staff. And I don't want to get into a lot of detail, but it was, how can I say this? Even after there was upheaval, a couple people kind of pursued what they wanted. And I kind of felt like we as parents and a team that we should figure this out together and come to a common conclusion. And a couple people were hell-bent to do it the way they wanted. They disappeared off the teams, but, you know, that was life. So there were times we pushed, and we had to. Those were hard times. Those were tough times. That is not the way I like to work. It was always rough. So I want to share something, and Sara will recognize this as MNTAFs. This was something we had kind of put into words and developed. As a professional, he's your case. He's your student. For parents, this is my child. You're there for a time, months, maybe years, maybe a year, but I'm, as a parent, in it for the long haul. You offer your input and ideas and expertise, which is greatly appreciated, truly. But we as parents will live with the outcome of our choices and decisions for the rest of our lives and our child's. Neither of those positions is wrong. They're just different. And it's really important to understand the difference. It would be weird if there wasn't a difference, actually. So that has always struck me as being important to recognize that. One thing I do feel is it's always been unfair to, especially early childhood educators, is that you don't get to see this. You know, so often you don't get to see, because yeah, I've been there all along, but whether it's you or the next set or the next set or the next set of people, we couldn't have done this without you. And we know that. I know that. There is no doubt about it. So hopefully, maybe you won't see all your other kids, but look at him and trust that your kids will end up this way sometimes. You know, just have faith that what you're doing is really important and worthwhile. So you support us and you educate us at a very difficult time for us. And we know that puts challenges on you. Sometimes we don't act like the people we thought we were or knew we were. The care you show for our child does build trust, so that is so important. And you give us direction oftentimes when we don't know which way to go. It is the difference between thriving or surviving oftentimes for families, your support and your knowledge. One of the things that we always found hard was expectations. It's such a balancing act. We want you to expect of him, have high expectations, but don't expect too much. You know, I mean, I'm sure as parents, you guys say, or as teachers, you guys say, what the heck does she really want? But it is a balancing act. It's a balancing act for us too. So that's the importance of keeping weighing in. That wasn't funny. So that is one of the things is we saw oftentimes the paras, they're there to help support him, take care of him, and by gum, they'll do a really good job of it. And I think one of the toughest things was getting people to say, okay, let's see what he can do, let's see how far he can go with this. Because what we found with David is at age 2.5, they deemed him untestable. This is my untestable kid here. In 4th or 5th grade it was, that we had an assessment done at Mayo Clinic, and he was functioning at about 1st grade level. And they said, well, folks, this is as good as it gets. And we're devastated, you know. You hear those things and they just knock you down. But what I've came to understand pretty quickly was, and I tell this to other parents, I've done a lot of parent support, is he is the same child you had yesterday. It doesn't matter what they said. I loved David yesterday. He was a great kid yesterday. Just because they said that doesn't change much of anything. It really doesn't. So we tried to proceed on that basis and what he demonstrated to us. And I want to end with just a short little story about my husband, Steve, Papa at the time, told David this story, as we always read at night to him and told stories or something. And this was a story Papa told to David when he was little. He said, you know, we wanted a child. He was too young for even the stork yet, guys. Much as where babies really came from. So this is the way it went. So Papa said, you know, we wanted a baby. So we walked and looked. We looked at the blonde kids and the red-haired kids and the tall kids and the short kids. You know, the fat kids, the crying kids, the smiling kids. We looked at them all. And then we saw you, and we picked you. And David said to Papa, would you still pick me? And of course we would.
Oh, sure. Just looking back at the journey that you've had. And so here you are, when you look at what those early years, what was it like? What stands out? And what is it that you would like this group of professionals to know about those early years that really was important and helpful? Sorry.
I think Kellen was born 5 weeks early, and he was diagnosed in Rochester with Downs after the surgery for his omphalocele. And the doctor, the day before we went home with him, told us, you take this child home and you forget about it. You forget about the Downs. You expect anything you would from a normal child, and you only make exceptions where absolutely necessary. And that really was the motto that Tim and I kind of followed. We expected that things didn't happen as soon. You know, he walked at 22 months instead of 12 months, but our daughter walked at 10 months, and our other son walked at a year. And I remember one time, the one thing, when we sat down at an IEP staffing, and I know you guys have to do those, and God bless you all for them, but they are the most painful thing. I felt like I was getting bamboo shoots shoved under my nails at times. The one thing I would tell you is if you're going into those, like I told Jill the other day, if you can treat bad news like a sandwich, start out with some good news, then tell them what you're concerned with, but always end with some more good news, because it's much easier to eat a sandwich than it is just a lump of bad news. But listening would be the biggest thing for you guys. Like she said, sometimes maybe mom just needs somebody to bounce things off of, or be their support, or listen. When Kellen had went through preschool and he was in Sunday school, we thought things were going great. And then the school principal told us, well, we don't have a place for Kellen at our school. We'd like you to go up to Albert Lee. Albert is where, but it's a good thing because it's where I met Jill. But we don't have a class for you. We didn't have inclusion in the school district. They had one special ed room that they didn't think would really work, and so they wanted us to go visit in Albert Lee. So we did. Her husband had been my husband's coach, and Tim goes, well, Jill's a nice lady. We'll go look at her school. And we did, and it was a wonderful school. And it would have been an okay decision, but Jill listened to me when we were sitting there. And she looked right at me and said, Dawn, if that's what you want to do is keep Kellen in Glenville, keep him there. And so, and I talked to Keith Erickson, our director, and special ed director, and he supported us too. And he said, no, we can make this work, Dawn. So it was a lot of work. We were the first ones to go through inclusive setting in our district. Like I said, and I would make phone calls to Pacer to get advice, and the school board was probably our biggest thing that we had to fight, just because of they would use the budget and the funding stuff as issues. So that wasn't a teacher issue, but you guys' support and you being able to listen and maybe read what the parent is saying, like Jill did, because she gave me the courage to say, yep, we want him in school in Glenville. That's where his brother and sister will graduate from. That's where his friends are. That's where we live. And it was the right decision. It really was. And it turned out to be a really beautiful story. Like I said, we got involved. I wanted him to learn to swim. That was one of our things that we couldn't find a place. We couldn't find anyone who was comfortable teaching Kellen to swim. The school, the pool said no. Another lady at the Red Cross said no, they weren't qualified to teach him. But then we found the Special Olympics coach said, I can teach him. And that's how we started getting involved in Special Olympics. And that was, it just worked out really well. The Special Olympics blended with our family, and then the unified sports came into play where Kellen got to participate in golf at school. The coach let him on the B squad team, And then Devin was able to, our other son was able to be a unified partner with Kellen in Special Olympics. So they were able to participate together. He got to be on the T-ball teams in school, and he's always been the water boy all the way through college. Our son was a baseball player, and the coaches, even at Bethany Lutheran College in Mankato, let him be on deck and gave him a jersey and everything. So inclusion is one of the things that we think has been amazing. And I know that things change for you guys, but if you expect them to accomplish and don't accept that they can't, don't make an, don't let parents make an excuse, don't you guys make an excuse, expect them to achieve. And I don't know, and they will. I mean, you'd be amazed when you set your bar high. Even if I have to lower the bar later, set it high. Don't be afraid to go out on a limb and say, I think they can do more. And if they fail, like Jill and I talked, we learn more from failure a lot of times than we do from success. So not to be afraid of them failing. Let them fail at some things. There's nothing wrong with that either. At least they know they tried. And I think that's a biggie in your area. But you guys this is an amazing group. I can't tell you how much I thought of the early childhood people that gave us our start and our courage and our strength and support. So you guys are at the ground floor. You guys are the ones that set the foundation for these guys. So be proud of what you're in. And she really covered everything. So I don't want to reiterate and take more time from you than you need, but what else did we talk about?
I just have a little follow-up question, and I know you alluded to this, Deb, but if you look back on your parent lives, what are the things, or is there anything that comes to mind that you wish you had known back then? Or any special lessons that you've learned in the process? I have to chuckle because Deb talked about technology. This woman was a holdout on email. She would not sign up for email. True. And cell phone. I will never have a cell phone. I will never have a cell phone. So,
Guess who doesn't have a cell phone for the past 2 years?
well, there you go.
I sent it off with him to, actually it was 3 years, off to college, and I never did get one again.
Okay, technology, there you go. Lessons learned. I mean, we all get smarter as we get older. So what do you know now that you wish you'd have known 25 years ago, 30 years ago?
Oh, I learned that I had to be persistent. I learned more about myself. I wasn't the type of person, but I had to be. I had to learn to speak up. I had to learn to insist. You do it in a polite way, but you can't give up. And you guys shouldn't either, because like she said, sometimes parents maybe don't hear you the first time. When I worked at the preschool in our town, the one thing I noticed with Kellen's situation, we knew right away what we were dealing with. But as you get the preschool setting that you're in, you guys having to break the news to people, to parents, that you think there's maybe an issue and that you would like their children tested or whatever. I saw the early childhood gal at our preschool. You get beat up, you're gonna get beat up because they're angry, things aren't working out like they thought they were, or they're grieving a loss of an expectation. Don't take it personal. They don't know what to do. Sometimes parents' emotions kind of get in the way of rationale. You're the easy target sometimes because they're angry and they don't know what to do with that anger. And yeah, don't take it home with you. Don't take it personal. They didn't mean it, and the next day they'll come back and half the time they won't even remember that they were, I think, I think you're in a tough spot, too. That would be hard. Like I said, I can't imagine having a 3-year-old and thinking they know, like Jill and I have talked, they know in their heart that they're going to get that discussion, that it's something should be looked at. But it's when it's finally told to them. And then they have emotions that they have to deal with. But they get through it. And you end up being their best friend later. You end up stuck going to coffee with them or seeing them at the grocery store. And you really do become good friends.
A couple things come to mind. You get, the news. We didn't know for days and days and days if David would live. He coded at 9 days, and we just did not know if we were going to have him home, even at a year. He didn't eat, but I think what I wished I had known or understood earlier was the joy and the gifts he would bring to our lives. We always enjoyed him, and I loved rocking him and spending time at the hospital. We'd sit for hours and we'd sing and whatever, I'd sing. And that's why he doesn't want me to sing anymore, ever. But he has given us tremendous gifts and joy and challenges. But the joy part, you're so in shock, and you don't know what's coming. You just don't know what's coming. You just aren't ready for what they give you. You aren't even open to it, kind of. So I think it was, around, I don't know if it was 3 or so, it's kind of like dawning on you. We're really, 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 really glad to have this kid. And he taught us already so much. And he will. And David, he knows we've never hidden that there's a disability, that there's a challenge, but we've never lived it like it's the biggest thing in the world either. And he does things that are so funny sometimes that it just cracks us up. I mean, for example, the literalness, I keep thinking back when they said at 2.5, they said he was untestable. They told him to look at the paper closely. He went,
Be specific,
and we
right?
know these kids are literal. Well, one time in the house we said the cars flooded. This was when cars did flood. When he was quite young, he said, "How did it get full of water?" They are literal. They really are. And some of the regular ed teachers, it's really difficult for them to understand. He was told by an art teacher to draw his tennis shoe, to draw a tennis shoe. He drew the view of a tennis shoe from the top. He looked down. This is how the shoe looked. And she was not happy. Well, we all look at things differently. I just thought, what the heck, lady? And then in elementary school, they told him to draw the library. Now, most of us, when you first say library, we think of what? Books. David drew the paths, the kind of a floor plan of it. It's just a different way of thinking. Not wrong, it's just a different way. So when people have these prescribed pictures in their head of this kid, a kid like this, it just doesn't work. You just got to go with it. He did his work. May not have been the picture you had, but it's the picture he has. And it's not wrong, And the other thing, so you got to laugh about those. So then, I think it was later high school, we had done a lot of social skills training. And we were continuing on, but it gets hard because it has to go beyond taking turns and playing games. There's a a sophisticated thing, and I've never figured out how to teach hanging out. You know, just hanging out with the guys. If you guys have any ideas, let me know. He still doesn't hang out very good. But we decided an approach to meeting new people, which has always been hard for David, is those initial meetings. We decided to find people we knew that he didn't, and then we would go to that person and say, we're going to bring David. We'd like you to chat with him, have a conversation with him. So we did that with quite a few people. You know, we'd go and we'd introduce them, and then we'd let them talk. Finally, he said to me, "This is not fair. You know these people. I don't." I said, "That is the point, buddy." So anyway, there is a lot of laughter in it all. And I don't mean to make light of it. There's challenges and tough days, and we still struggle, don't we, David, sometimes? Often. Yeah. Yeah. We try to do it with love always. Because I'll encourage or ask something, and I say, I'm only doing it because I don't love you, you know. So anyway, and the thing I used always with him was the mom handbook, as I mentioned in my, see, he recognizes it. You know, it says so in the mom handbook, but you got to do it. I've been thinking about writing it. Other people can use it, believe me. And so I was thinking about laughter. You got to laugh. I mean, I can see that Kellen and Dawn do too. They have fun with things.
You do. You have to have a good sense of humor.
You do. You have to find it in it. If you don't laugh, you're...
Yeah. And they do really, we have learned more from Kellen than we've taught him. So it's been a pretty good trade-off.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.